Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works. And this isn't the review I thought I was going to be doing this week. I'll be doing that in a couple weeks. This one is Revell's original Bronco, and the reason that I didn't see it coming is I obviously wasn't perusing the Revell catalog lately, because I'm sure I would have seen this one coming as it was. As I said, it was kind of a surprise. It was in my local hobby shop, and this thing you know, just short of leapt off the shelf into my hands. I couldn't believe it when I saw it because it's pretty cool, and it is a new tooling. It's not going back to the days of the 60s and 70s, and they've just simply rewormed the tooling. This set definitely appears to be all new tooling, and the date that is molded into parts of the body are 2016. So I'm not sure if this has been out for a couple months or if it's basically just hit the shelves in the last month or so. But at any rate, I think it's pretty cool. And as well as that, what's interesting is this kind of represents a trend of a lot of Revell models lately, in that it's really bone stock. It doesn't have it. It's just basically the vehicle as originally sold. Now, they might come up with versions later, like they might do a rock crawler or something like that, or something with some fun graphics. It is nice that this represents the vehicle as bought by thousands of North Americans and used just this way. So, the original Bronco, this iteration here, was built largely unchanged from 1966 to 1977, other than some minor detail changes, which I'm sure real Bronco aficionados would be able to point out, such as, oh, well, this piece of trim changed from this year to this year. But this is one of these vehicles that changed very, very little during its entire lifespan. Now, it originally came with a choice of V6 or V8, and about halfway through the production run, each of these engines was enlarged to a larger version, a larger straight six, a larger V8. And it's interesting in that, kind of like the Mustang, you could option up the Bronco to kind of be just yours. And some of the options, I mean, ranged from basic things like a tachometer. You could get a CB radio. Um, it also came with, as well as that, a more practical option was a power takeoff, certainly indicating that Ford was intending that this vehicle was going to be used in a very utilitarian fashion. As well as that, you could get a post hole digger as an optional attachment. So I can certainly see somebody on a farm ordering one of these and getting, like I said, these sorts of utilitarian options for it. Now, right from the get-go, the original Bronco was second place in sales to the original CJ5 Jeep, and it maintained that position until 1969, when Chevrolet brought out its Blazer. Now, Chevrolet didn't build a completely dedicated vehicle like the Bronco. They basically shortened up their full-size pickup truck in order to create the Blazer. And it really was a winning formula for them, because from 1969, the Bronco was a poor third place to the Blazer. As a matter of fact, by 1973, the Blazer was selling twice as many units a year as the Bronco. And it made enough of an impression on Ford that they had actually originally intended on replacing this Bronco with the F100 version in 1974. However, because of the oil crisis and gasoline shortages and things, they decided to keep the smaller, more fuel efficient Bronco in production until 1978, when it was replaced by the F100 slash F150 version that most people are more familiar with. So let's look inside the box and see what we have. So as we look at the box, we've got Revell's standard, box where it's got the statistics in three languages, It's molded in white. It's got 137 parts in it, which at first may not seem that high, but I mean, really, it's a small vehicle, so it is impressive that it has that many parts in it. And there are really no optional parts in it, so you're going to be using most of what's in the box. If we look on the other side here, you can see the model assembled, as it has the removable top, which of course was a feature of the original. And we see here it's got a detailed engine. The underside looks like completely separate parts, and we'll see that in a moment. I should mention that this is a skill level 5 kit, which shouldn't really get anybody too upset, because this is Revell's new skill levels, where I believe it goes all the way up to 6. So a skill level 5 is not totally frightening. It's more of a level 3 in their old system. So everything is all separately bagged up, which is always nice. And we've got a moderate-sized chrome sprue. And we've got transparencies. And this almost seems odd how flat the transparencies are. And I've already removed the bag from these sprues here. But you can see, following Revell's recent trends, there's a lot of really small sprues in here. And we'll take a closer look at these in a moment. But this just gives you an idea of how many parts we've got in here. Here's the bag with the tires. And the instructions, which is a fairly substantial book. And we've got the decals. Looking at the instructions, of course, this is the basically standard Revell instruction manual. We've got a picture of looks like the box art right there, as well as a 3-view drawing. We've got the potted history in English, French, and Spanish. We've got advisories and legal notices. Please don't eat the parts. And then we've got some suggested colors. And then we've got a list of the parts. And that's 2 pages right there. Engine assembly takes 2 full steps. Mind you, they've broken each step down into several segments here. And you could say that they're really stretching their instructions out. But on the other hand, a lot of people like it kept simple, where they're only worrying about 1 or 2 parts at a time. Oh, we've got one more step for the engine, putting it into the frame and assembling the frame. You've got the transfer case there and the axles being put on. And we've got more frame construction here. And here we've got the final assembly of the frame. And like I said, each drawing is really only locating 2 or 3, 4 parts at the maximum. We've got the wheels being put on, and then we move on to the interior, and they've got a roll bar that can go in here. And then we've got finishing up the interior. We've got the body, and it looks like you might have an option for your air cleaner here, how that gets set up. And that's probably one of these really small details that a true Ford Bronco fan would be able to tell you. You know, yeah, from 1971 to 1973, there were variations on how the snorkel went on the air cleaner. And then we've got the finish up assembly. And then we have decal placement. Looking at the decal sheet, we have the white graphics for the sides of the vehicle. Now, you'll be able to use these white graphics for pretty much any color you want, other than white, obviously. But it certainly doesn't keep you to just going with a blue body. You could go with, I know yellow is a popular color, red, green. You could use these decals with any of those. And they have several different versions of the Ford lettering. We've got one type of license plate, Colorado, and these markings here, I believe, are for the seats and the sidewalls for the interior. And once again, we've got two versions of the Ford lettering right there. Let's start with the transparencies. Now, I will be slipping these back into the plastic bag, but they are dead flat, which is the way the real vehicle was made. And I don't see any blemishes or anything like that. We've got our headlights there, and these appear to be the rear tail lights. Rear tail lights? Where else are we going to put your tail lights but on the rear? But at any rate, these will need to be tinted red. Next up is the tires, and just a word of warning, you've got the metal pins that Revell uses on a lot of their kits to hold the wheels on, right there. But they are in a separate channel of the bag, so you don't have to worry about them disappearing when you take your tires out. Just don't throw your bag away. But to take a look at the tires, as is Revell practice, there is no writing on the outside of the tires, but they do have a really, really nice, let's get a focus on that, really nice tread on them. And they are fairly soft. I like these tires. They're not overdone. I don't think they're going to overwhelm the size of the vehicle. And then we have our modest chrome sprue. And I'm not seeing any flash on here. And once again, you can see how simple the Bronco was. The front and rear bumpers are basically, I won't say identical. It looks like this one is a bit longer than this one, but they're very close in size and shape. And we have hubcaps, which are very, very plain and basic. And I believe the wheels are such that you'll be able to leave these off. Now, I did say that those transparencies were taillights, but this looks like the taillights right here. So basically they're chrome, and then you can use a product like Tamiya Red Clear to tint those, and they should look fine. And of course we have the grille. Now, some people may want to completely strip all of the paint off this grille, because a lot of Broncos came with basically white or ivory painted grills. This was just basically a stamped piece of sheet metal. There was nothing fancy about it. So you could argue that at least Revell has catered to the rare option of a chrome grille and left it up to the modeler if they want to remove it. I mean, let's put it this way. It's easier to remove chrome than it is to chrome it ourselves. So I have to say I agree with your decision to give us a chrome grille. And if you want to go with a plain painted one, you can strip it and paint it, or you can just paint it, although you might find it's difficult to apply over chrome. Sometimes it is. But at any rate, I'm not unhappy with this. And there's probably some option for a future kit located in here. This sprue has some interior parts, and it has separate sidewalls, which are really, really nice. Good definition on the window winders. We have the windshield frame there, and we have the hood. Here is our pedal assembly. Obviously, we're talking a standard transmission, a manual, because it has a clutch pedal. And here we have our engine parts. Now, this only comes with a V8 option. And I think that's the only thing I'm kind of disappointed with this, is I would have liked to have seen them invest in the parts for the straight six as an option, because a lot of these were built for utilitarian use, and I'm thinking that a lot of those owners probably went for the straight six option. The straight six, after all, was the base engine. It would be nice to have it as an option. We have a fan shroud here, and this is probably one of the nicer fans I've seen in a kit. Let's get a close-up on that if we can. It's not going to let us. Let's try this again. Nope. There we go. You can see it even has the rivets holding the blades onto the center section. Really nice tooling work there, Revell. And here we've got our separate chassis. And we've got the exhausts. This looks like it is part of the steering gear. Got some leaf springs for the rear. Once again, this looks like part of the steering. Now, if we focus in on that, you can see, hopefully, that it has a date of 2016. And they've actually also molded that on the outside of this part right here. So that'll probably require a little bit of sanding, seeing as we know that the original Bronco was not made in China. But at any rate, we know when the Revell cut the tooling for this, which was within the last year. On this part here, we have the floor pan. Now, there are some ejector pin marks here that you can see as I tilt it in the light. But you know what? They seem to be located basically under the seats. So hopefully they're not going to show too much. There are some minor ones here. We've got a couple more small sprues here, which I think, once again, based on recent Revell practice, gives them a few more options in molding future kits. They can just leave out some of these small sprues and replace them with others. So this appears to have radiator hoses and some wheel backs. And this has the seats and the upper part of the bench seat, as well as some parts of the roll bar. And I think these are also part of the rear seat as well. Here we have our wheels, so you don't have to use those hubcaps. And indeed, I think probably most Broncos you saw did not have any sort of a fancy wheel cover on them or anything like that. They were very, very plain. Here is our, is this our front or rear axle? No. Half of it is the rear axle and half is the front axle. That's what we have here. But at any rate, there looks like there's probably going to be some options based on the fact that Revell has molded these on a separate sprue. And finally, our last two parts, we have the removable top. And you can see there's not a whole lot to this. There are some large ejector pin marks in here, but they shouldn't be too hard to take care of. Now, they do mold in the sun visors, which is nice, but it'll just make it a little more difficult to clean up the ejector pin marks. I think it would have been nice to have these separate, but at least they're there. And finally, we have the body. Now, I know this is a really complex shape for Revell to have molded. I know this must have taken them an awful long time and many, many tries to come up with this. But you can't get much more plain than a Bronco body. As a matter of fact, you can see there's only a very slight taper towards the nose, but it certainly looks the part. And you can see we have Ford molded into the tailgate, which is nice, and I believe you could probably put the decals right on that. And the spare tire carrier hangs off this side, judging by these two large lugs. Overall, I can't see anyone having any quibbles with this body. It sits flat and certainly looks the part. Now, I thought, just for comparison's sake, we could maybe look at the original Bronco with, now I know this isn't the Mark II Bronco, this is actually the Mark III that came out in 1980, but basically the size is the same, and you can see how much larger the 1980 Bronco was. Now, this is true, this is 1/24th scale versus 1/25th scale, but it's not going to make that much of a difference. And also, for interest's sake, here is the second generation Explorer. So you can see just a comparison of sizes. Now, this is 1/24th scale. In terms of width, you can see that the second generation Explorer, other than it having way more luxuries and everything like that, was certainly closer to the original Bronco size than the second and third generation Broncos, which are represented by this. Like I said, this is the 1981. The 1978 and 79 one was based on the pre-1980 F100/F150. So I was really, this actually wasn't on my wish list, the original Bronco, but when I saw it, I was thinking like, geez, that would be cool. There'd be an awesome vehicle to add to my collection if I ever get around to building it. And I thought that a lot of people might not be aware that it was out, and it is, looks to be awesome. So, thanks for watching Dan's Model Works, and until next time, keep on modeling.